And this is the Double One number 11 podcast. Cam and Joe talking about consistency today. How to stay consistent. What is it? What does it mean? What is it like? What does it feel like? How are you, Cameron?
I'm doing great. Consistent in some things in my life, and others not so much. The gym is it's been falling off, so we'll see what wisdom you can bring me today to help me stay consistent.
That's perfect timing for this conversation then. Yeah, it's interesting because the biggest reference flip. Oh, first of all, our sponsor, GetRichRetired.com, UnsoldYachts.com. Check them out. Also, Cameron's VisionBoards.com, your site for making the best vision boards. I need to get one of those, dude. Your vision board's awesome.
Gonna make me
spit my
water everywhere.
I like dog-eared a bunch of photos to bring to. I have a printer, but it's black and white because I'm like. So this is completely off topic, but you know when you do you ever go on Reddit?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Someone introduced that to me when I started the job at the hospital when I was working swing shifts. So like after midnight, they'd be very slow. So yeah, I know Reddit very, very well.
So last night this is completely unrelated again, but there was this like court case going on that was like pretty egregious, and I went down like a dark hole abyss, and then all of a sudden it was like 2 a.m, and I was like, this is why I stopped going on Reddit. But anyway, so I was like,
vision board tip: you go to UPS.
Yeah,
you can print nice color images for like 10 cents.
Like a big one. I'm gonna use Walgreens because it's like you can print it like dirt ass cheap there. It was like I think $3 for like this thing here. I printed at Walgreens and like framed it instead of buying like a $20 photo. I made that, so I'm gonna basically do that.
Nice. You can order prints online through Costco as well too, and pick them up.
Costco,
and they're cheap. You can get any side like poster, everything.
So what was I talking about? Oh, anyway, so it was like, oh, if you don't get a Brother laser printer, like you're a piece of shit. So I'm like, okay, well, let me like go from having like a $80 budget to like a $200 budget. So I got a black and white one because it was the cheapest. Anyway, yeah. So consistency is interesting because one thing that that I didn't realize is we are creating habits constantly and uncreating habits constantly, right? So everything is a learned behavior from habitual activity or consistency. So lack of consistency is a habit. There's like we're going to the gym a ton, building the habit, and then like you started to unbuild the habit. Like if you're talking about how it's been like life gets busy and you don't have time. I got a cool quote here. All right. I didn't really look up. I just Googled consistency quotes. So let me ask you this, because this is probably something that you're in an interesting way privy to. How does the Army create habits and consistency?
They start with like just breaking things down simple. So an example would be like cleaning the bathroom, or they want to say the latrines every day. And you'll be like, this is crazy. Like, this shit's not really dirty. And doing it over and over again. And then, they'll come and inspect and be like, oh, you missed this spot. And like, you'll be like, man, why are they so crazy on the details of this? The way they explain it to you is like, this is about learning to just do something consistently and to do it right. And if you can't do something as basic as like cleaning the toilet correctly, like how can you do a more complicated task when you're like sleep deprived or like under fire or stressed out? Like if you can't handle some very simple things, you ain't going to be able to handle when like bullets are flying at you type of thing. So when you start realizing that's why they're making you do those things, you're like, oh, okay, like it makes more sense. Plus it's like something that just needs to get done every day. You can imagine like 30 dudes like taking dumps and pissing in there,
bro.
And they drink like horses and they fucking dip, and
everyone just has
you can imagine how dirty those places would get.
Who has to clean the toilet? Is that like a punishment, or is that like do you have like a chore wheel?
So like in your own like unit where you have like the bathroom they use like throughout the day. It's kind of like everyone's responsibility. So they would just assign it, of like a squad would be in charge of it like every day for a week, and it would rotate or whatever. So it would be maybe like they break it down by team. So like maybe 4 dudes would go do that, and like the other 4 dudes would be like mop and sweep the floors. But as far as like larger, like out mowing all the lawns and things like that, it was people who had been busted, got in trouble, and they were put on extra duty. So when everyone's off for the day at 5, you're out there like cutting grass till like 9 o'clock at night.
Ugh.
And
the way that crazy shit, like cut the grass with scissors or like clean with a toothbrush.
I mean, they would mess with you a little bit, but it was at that level, it was more like they just needed to get done. So give you an idea.
That seems like a highly unintelligent method of doing something.
Like to mess with you during the workday, they would do some dumb shit like that. But when they're like punishment detail, they're just like, no, we got plenty of grass for you to cut. Like here's a push mower. Like you can be here all fucking day. And like the South in the summer, like good luck. But is what they would do is if they had a while, like a couple months go by and no one's like screwing up on their own, surprise drug test that they would just pop. So you show up in the morning.
What happens if you if you piss hot? Because they just randomly pull samples. Do they know whose samples they are? So
they would basically like you be in formation to start PT in the morning. And then they would be like, all right, we're not doing PT. Everyone upstairs, everyone inside. And they basically like lock you in this room and you can't leave until you piss. And you got to be supervised.
They like make you pee like 6 inches away from the thing so they can watch your pee stream or something.
Yeah. So when you become like an NCO, like a non-commissioned officer sergeant, I had to do this when I was first a sergeant. You got to be a fucking meat gazer. You have to like go do the shit job of like watching.
Are you really looking though? Come
piss
on.
in the cup? No. Like I was like, dude,
yep, that's good.
Yeah. I'm like, just fucking piss in there, dude. I don't fucking care. Like
a meat gazer? Is that what you said?
Yeah, meat gazer.
I fucking love that, dude. I'm gonna try to fit that into a conversation with you. You meat gazer.
But they don't test the whole entire company's batch, like 150 people.
They just grab grab
a random small sample. If no one pisses hot, they just move on and get rid of all the samples. If someone pisses hot, then they do a larger sample, and if that's hot, they keep going.
Do they know who's hot, or are they all random? Like,
it's just
they know,
random.
like, okay, I just grabbed Greg's.
They would usually do it after a holiday weekend. So basically, every like Memorial Day, Labor Day, you always get like 4 days off when you're a government employee. So a lot of people they know are wilding out, or people go home on leave. Oh yeah, you come back from leave, they're drug testing everyone. You know, it's
a lot of people smoke that fake weed,
like salvia
K2.
Oh, I don't know. I was in like quite a while ago before like a lot of that stuff started popping up.
I think that was like when did you retire?
So I got out in 2008. But that's where they would get people. Like there was people who they knew like, oh fuck man, like I messed up this weekend, I did it, and they would just like. There's a lot of tricks you can try to do, like where you get super hydrated to where you're just kind of like
piss like an
pissing water basically, and you pray. And there was times where people they knew they were hot and they didn't get caught because the batch just didn't get it. But they would get enough people to where now they got like an army of like 10 people cutting all the grass for the next 3 months as punishment.
Oh, they didn't kick people out? They just slap them on the wrist and make them do like bullshit work?
Once 9/11 happened and like people would try to intentionally piss hot to get kicked out so they wouldn't have to go on deployment. So they basically told us like, hey, don't try to intentionally do some shit to get kicked out. Like you're still going to go on deployment. You'll just go as an E1. Like we'll bust you all the way down in rank. And
so
we'll
dock half your pay each month.
And we'll put you on extra duty. So if you want to try to get out of that, your life's going to be miserable. So you might as well just not do it. And like you're going no matter what.
Why would anyone join if they didn't want to get deployed? Or they just didn't realize what they were signing up for?
I don't know. Or I think maybe people who were in before 9/11 happened. So
when we
they
weren't
were
like
in, or maybe they've been in 10 years already, and then that happened and they never went on deployment. Like deployments were going to training exercises to like friendly NATO countries. It wasn't like war zone deployments.
And y'all were like, let's go F some stuff up.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen very often. Most people were like, they didn't intentionally get busted. They just did fucking drugs.
I just remember that when that fake weed stuff came out, it was like really, I lived in Florida at the time and it was like really popular. And what would happen is, and I don't know if this is a Florida thing, because Florida's just a weird state. Even people who live there wouldn't even be like, have a problem with that statement. And so like, let's say the chemical structure is like K279, then the Florida legislature would go, K279 is now banned. And then the chemists would go, okay. And then they'd make K2710. Like they just like move the molecule over and science it. And then that's legal now. So this went on for, years. I wonder if it's still legal there. Anyway, though, so the stuff kept getting stronger and stronger. So we wound up, it was called the Joker. And it was a picture of the Joker but like a really like demonic looking Joker, like from Batman. And it was so strong that's when I was like, I'm never smoking this fake weed again. I smoked a bowl of it, and I literally I was so high that my peripheral vision was going upwards and then like falling back down. I was like staring straight ahead, and the reality was going weep and then falling back down. And I was like, oh my God, I was going to lose it. Like I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, it's hospital time. So the trick, cause I used to be really potted, I don't smoke anymore, but then the trick is like, okay, go do like a routine activity. So I would just like, I started washing the dishes. So I did that for a while. Then I was doing like everything, every chore that could like, I could focus myself on. And then like finally it passed, but that shit was so intense.
Oh, I can't imagine. I've seen people like do Sylvia and stuff, but not the like level or version that you're talking about. We used to have a lot of people that were
got like a psycho or a hip. What's that called? When you like trip,
like a psychedelic.
Psychedelic. There you go. Words.
The main thing people would do was alcohol, coke, and meth.
That was big in the military.
Meth, not so much, but there was a couple guys that maybe like 2 or 3 out of 30.
Wait, what did you say? I thought that's what you said.
Hooked into meth. Coke and drinking. Alcohol was obviously the biggest, like everyone drinking alcohol.
Yeah. Well, and then like Coke comes out and gets out of your system really quickly.
Yes, that was why, like if we had 2 weeks off vacation, the guys who did partake in that, not a lot, maybe a handful, they were just like, yeah, I know I can do the first week home. I can just do as much like Coke as I want. And then I don't the second week. And by the time we get back, it's out of my system. So when drug test, I'm cool.
It's funny how like the drugs that are, arguably the most aggressive get out of your system the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
So back to consistency. So, all right. So the number one phase is they have you do these like very detail oriented, but seemingly meaningless tasks to create that like subconsciousness. Like how do they,
and then repetition is the biggest thing, like going to the range to shooting over and over again. It's not, obviously you're trying to improve your skill. So you're like a really good shot. But once you get to that stage, then it's getting your heart rate up and then doing it is a lot different. If you just like right now, if you just sat down like at a range and started shooting, your heart rate's not high. So they would add things to where you'll like do a 6 mile road march or like rucksack march, you got like 30, 40 pounds in your back to the range. And as soon as you get there, you literally just drop your ruck and jump right into the hole and pick up your weapon. It's within like 1 minute, you're already testing for like the range qualification, because there's way different when you're sweating and like your heart rate is beating to stay as accurate. And then they'll take it up a notch. Now do it with your gas mask on to where the eyes are fogging up. And it's like, they just keep adding more variables because try to make it as stressful as possible because they can't like simulate real combat. This is the closest they can do in training. But they would tell us, I think it was something like, you got to do something like 7,000 times before it just becomes muscle memory. So that's another thing.
7,000?
If you get in a situation where like somebody has a gun and they're like going to point at you. I mean, they don't want you to hesitate, right? They want you to just muscle memory, literally just up, safe, off, and pull the trigger. So it's like just one fluid motion. So your brain doesn't think about it. It's just muscle memory to do it. And the reason is because obviously that saves your life and the guys around you's life. If you even hesitate for a second, I mean, obviously
that's so smart.
You don't know how it's going to affect you after, like mentally or whatever, but they try to do it to where it's just the repetition. So body just takes over and does it regardless of the stress of the situation.
And
like
you're layering it. So you go in and do the skill with like no stress, master. Then they're like, okay, now this is the next tier. And then you kind of suck again. Okay, master.
yeah.
Okay,
Or
now
like let's stay up for
blindfold you.
let's stay up for a day, and then we'll have you go do. So when you're exhausted and tired, to simulate like how you're gonna any types of ways they can stress your body out. That's how they
a
would try
really
to
good
build consistency.
method. I mean, obviously that's to train you to be like war ready, but just in terms of any skill. I mean, obviously obsessed with golf lately, but you know, the easiest club to hit is like, let's say a pitching wedge, 9-iron. So then you get good with that. Okay, graduate to 8, 7, 6. I mean, it's not the same as preparing for being like in a gas mask in like some sort of battle situation, but it's those baby steps that build. And then like, so your frontal lobe is creating it's like when you can do a thing without having to think about it. Okay, cool. Let's add another layer. So now you gotta start thinking about it again. It goes back, then it gets to your middle brain. That's awesome. That's so smart.
And that's creating, I feel like, physical consistency to things. But I think the mental part is more important, because if you mentally are able to push that forward, you'll get to there physically, no problem. But like you can't get to the physical consistency if mentally you're just not in it.
How much do you think that they go hand in hand? Like, obviously your brain is, the mental stuff is like at what point does something become subconscious? Is it because of your muscle memory, or is it because of your mental acuity? Like, what do you think?
It's like anything else. I'll give you an example. When I got like picked to be a recruiter in the Army, or basically like came down on orders to do that. So transferred from infantry to go be a recruiter for, 2 years. And they send you through their course like 7 weeks, and you get, practice, and they do like hands-on training, like cold calling, like, prep interviews, all this really good training that they do. And then you get on site, and they basically are like, hey, here's your phone. Here's the keys to your like vehicle. Like, here's the schools you're assigned. Like, go fucking do it. If you got questions, we're here. But it's basically like on you. And part of that's cold calling. I mean, you've been in sales a long time, and you call for like a whole week, right? You're psyched like a couple hours a day, and you don't get results. And then the next week you stay at it. And after about like the third week, you're like, oh, like, I feel like this is a waste of time. But the people who've done it and they're just like, no, I'm telling you, got to stick with it. Like, just give me 6 months consistently of calling your 3 hours a day. And they're like, just watch, it'll pay off. And it doesn't feel like it. And this is where the consistency comes in, right? There was days that I'm like, man, I don't feel like making these calls. And maybe some days I only did an hour or hour and a half, or like half-assed it. But like, I tried to consistently stay and make that. And by about 4 or 5 months, that's when the results started happening, to where every business card I handed out, every person I saw, every conversation I had, left voicemails I left, eventually, hey, people start calling you back. And those results of being consistent paid off, even though while it's happening, it doesn't feel like it. So I feel like that's with anything. When it's happening at first, you're not seeing results. Just like when you start working out, you don't see magic body transformations right away. It takes time, but you have to stay consistent and keep doing it to get those results. Would you agree with that? Or do you have a similar, story or experience that's happened with you?
Yeah. I mean, you're 100% right. It's like, it's hard because it's that whole thing. Like you said, there are those days where you're like, you're supposed to do, we say 4 hours a day, was it?
3
hours. And then there's one day where you're like, you just phone it in, but you did an hour. Okay. You're still actually today I didn't want to go to the gym, but I'm like, you know what, just go, you'll feel better. I did like a 30-minute workout, but hey, you know what? It's not as good as an hour workout, but I'm still consistent. The habit's still there. 30 is better than 0. And so, yeah, it's definitely like, I think the biggest thing is you reach that inflection point, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, this is getting easy. Like with recruiting, that's a really good example, because our sales, it's like you've made enough calls, enough contacts, enough people, and then you can be like, oh, I remember I talked to that one guy. What was his name? Dave. Let me hit him up. Hey, dude, remember me? Hey, I got this thing. And then it's like you're set up, or people start coming in and referring people. It's in those moments though, those like each call block or each workout or each rep, whatever, where like nothing's happening because we want it to be like, oh, why didn't I like get the thing I wanted immediately? And that's what I think consistency is so important. And for me, it's like, I go through these funks like, and actually this is cool. The universe was like calling my bluff because I've been like feeling really, I get seasonal depression. It's gross here now. It's like snowy and cold and it gets dark at 4. And I've been wanting to like finish my day and like get in bed and like feel sorry for myself. Like, And then I'm like, ah, man, like, you know, like we're doing the podcast and like, I love it. And I'm so, when we do it and afterwards, I'm so stoked. But then you have those moments where you're like, I don't feel like doing anything today. But the day that I felt that way, 2 people mentioned the podcast to me out of nowhere, unprompted completely. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, universe. So complete side note, but that was from us we've been doing this for like months. Like it's a work in progress and it builds on itself.
Yeah, and I think you made a couple good points there that I wanted to touch on. 1, 2, that's the weather's the same here. It's like dark at 4:30 and it's freezing.
Does that? How do you feel with that? Does that like bum you out at all? I know some people don't really get affected by it.
A lot of people said that. They were like, "Hey, man, the gray like gets to you here. Like it affects people a lot." For me, I don't feel like my mood is worse. Like I don't get down, but that's why it's been harder for me to go to the gym because I'm just like, oh man, it's cold outside. I know it ain't cold at the gym, but I'm just like, fuck. I'm in like 3 layers of like pajamas,
and the coldness makes you want to get cozy. You see jammies, yeah.
Like in the morning, I'll still wake up at like 4:30, and I'll look at the clock, and I'm in bed, and it's like cold in my room, but I'm like, oh man, it's so warm in the bed, and I'm not even really tired. I'm just like, I don't want to get out of the warm bed, and then I fall back asleep. But if it was summertime, that wouldn't be the case. So,
dude, you'd be up, beautiful day, in your sandals.
They used to call it in the military. They used to call it the Z monster.
Z monster's
got you like to sleep, like Z's. It's coming to get you.
Plus, sleep is such a premium for y'all.
Well, and especially going so many years with very little sleep when you have a little one. In my body, I'm just like, maybe I should listen to my body. Like, it doesn't hurt catching up on some sleep. But
do you get used to that, dude? I'm so scared. I'm a fucking mess when I don't get enough sleep.
Me is like 5 hours it can be broken, but I need like at least 5 hours. I mean, I could function less than that for sure. But as far as mood wise, it's a huge difference. If I'm say I get like 2 hours and then I'm up for a couple hours and then I only get like 1 or 2 more, I'm fucking not feeling it the next day. I'll still get stuff done, but I'm really irritable and like not talkative.
Just like, those are those days where you're like, I can't wait for this day to end. Like you get through it.
Yes.
But you're not like, I love my life.
And then I'm like, I'm going to go bed early tonight. But then I'm like, no, I want to do some fun stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like 11 and you're like, fuck.
How do I early? Dude, I do the same thing. I stay up later on those nights when I'm exhausted. Like, I'm like, I can't go to bed too early.
I don't know. I think you just get used to it. Doing that in the military and then having a little one. It's whatever.
This is an interesting thing I was thinking of. So the military gives you this awesome framework for like consistency and follow through and habits and all this stuff. Why aren't there more? Not that there are a lot of successful people that come out of the military, but I feel like there should be more. Like, why aren't there more?
Well, this might offend a lot of people, but the majority of the people that go in are not the cream of the crop. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of people who go because they don't have any other option or choice.
Okay.
And they wouldn't want to do that, but they're like, it's either this or be homeless, or like, I get fired from all my jobs, but here I know I won't get fired. Like I just get yelled at.
It's like their backup plan. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great people that are in the military, but
phenomenal people. I mean, there's so many successful, smart people.
Obviously when you have that many, like The pay sucks, man. I mean, the first year I was in, I didn't even make $15,000 in the first year. I remember I got this credit card, like generic statement in the mail, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I'm gonna apply for this. Like, that'd be my first credit card." I was reading the fine print. And I didn't even qualify. They're like, "You gotta make 15K," and I think that year I made like 14 and a half. I'm like, I mean,
so
basically
it's balanced out by your
well, they provide housing for you, and
you
your food and utilities.
I wonder why you
covered
can't include your housing
when
as
you're
part of your income
on the base. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, you don't make a lot, but like all your stuff's covered, so the money you do get is like, cash to your pocket. But anyway, I would think to a lot of people, they're just because you have to conform and do those systems doesn't mean like people like it, or as soon as it ends, they're like, F that. I hated having to do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I think it's just what type of person you are before you go in. I think it's a very small percentage of people that are like dumpster fires and that like fixes them. But I could be wrong. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
I think you're 100% right. I heard a really cool quote. It was, I don't forget who was saying it, but it was essentially kind of a similar topic. And they were like, this gentleman was like, you can train any habit, you can untrain any bad habit for some reason, except bad decision makers. And the guy was like, if you knew someone that was a bad decision maker as a kid, chances are they're a bad decision maker as an adult. And like, for whatever reason, those types of people don't have the whatever in their brain to like create critical they just don't learn from mistakes. And I think it's like an actual issue in their brain. Like, it's not great, but I always compare this to like, however long someone's willing to work towards their goal, let's say like school or a job or a goal, like however long someone puts in to like achieve something, it is a good predictor of their ability to like long-term strategize. So like, let's just use like the medical field, for example. So a doctor, minimum like 8 years, longer for higher acuities. That's a person, he or she is a person who can be like a master of chess. They can hold off, they can delay gratification. They can plan very long-term. Maybe let's say an RN is someone who can like master, I don't know, what's a game that's like still high level, but not as high as chess. Maybe they can master chess, but they're not like a chess master. Like they can get good at chess. And then maybe an LPN is like a master of checkers. And then maybe a CNA is like, they're a master of tic-tac-toe. But it's just like the longer you're willing to delay gratification or think ahead. So if someone's in the military and they're just, they're a master of tic-tac-toe, they might get those systems, but they're still not going to have the ability to like plan ahead and be able to like delay gratification for a long-term goal.
Well, I think there's some people too, like I had a friend, I won't say his name because he may be listening to this, but he was kind of a fuck up and like not really consistent with things. But then being in that environment of the structure of the military where like you can't really not be consistent, because like if you oversleep and you don't show up for work, they just go into your room and like fucking drag you out of bed and throw you throw your clothes on and you're in formation. You might be 2 minutes late, but like you still going to work that day. So eventually you just are like, well, shit, I'm tired of having to do like corrective physical training, like push-ups and things like that, and getting messed with all the time. So then they're just like, all right, well, I'm going to do these things I am supposed to do. And then they do great.
You don't think that would straighten someone out though?
But then,
I feel like enough of that would straighten someone out.
Correct. But then there's some that when they get out, they just revert right back to their old habits.
Because they don't have the constant
because somebody's not
accountability
there.
Buddy.
Like
so
a battle
these are just
buddy,
people that are not self-accountable.
or a coach or someone
what.
to like hold them accountable. So they just fall off and go right back. And then they can't like show up consistently to work. They can't hold a job down. And they just, their life kind of deteriorates. I think that's the key to consistent, is having someone else there to help you on those days where you're mentally just like, I'm not feeling it today. Like there's been some days where I'll message you and you're like, how's it going? And I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything today.
That was you messaging me yesterday. I was like, we're in the seventh ring of hell today, Cameron.
And then you'll just say something to me, or like, even if you don't say anything directly, just chatting with you for like 2 minutes, it just improves my mood. And then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, yeah, I got this. Like, no big deal.
I like when we do get those brief moments when like there's like maybe like a pause in our day, because then I'm like, we usually are able to like, you're actually 99 out of 100 times in a really good mood, and then just your positivity, or you'll have like an interesting spin, or just you being like, oh, that's interesting, receptive, is like, I'm like, yeah, you know what, it's not so bad.
And every time I'm like, oh, I just seen this thing like very interesting, whether it's about like the stock market or crypto or something or whatever, where I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna let Joe know. And I look, dude, you're in a meeting. Like, if your day is 9 hours long, you're in a meeting like 8.5 hours out of the day. I feel like I never see
like
your
half
thing
the
not
day,
in
but
meeting.
then I block.
Oh, okay.
I
oh,
block
yeah, I
all my
remember you saying
tasks.
that.
But this, and dude, that's a perfect segue, because this is like all about like how to do, like, I've just been not feeling it lately, right? And so it's just, when you're not feeling it, you literally just have to just trudge through the shit.
Yes.
So like my calendar, all the crap that I don't want to have to remember, like at work, I only use my calendar for everything. It's all my reminders, all my shit I need to do. And then of course meetings, but I block my schedule. So there's literally a block for like every task, even if a task I do 3 times a day. So it's like when I'm feeling it and I'm feeling good, like I don't really need the reminder. I'm like, yeah, let's do this task. But then when I'm not feeling it, it's there to be like, all right, now it's time to send this email with this information, and now I have to call this person. But then like, at least it's like, consistency is not about feeling good. It's about getting to your goal. Like the journey's, it's like in the army, they say, well, is embrace the suck. So there's this, I just learned about this thing called the learning pit. And so it's like, here's your goal and here's the starting point. Oh man, this is going to be so great when I get there. And then you go into the pit and you're in the pit and the pit gets deeper. It sucks harder. But you just keep doing the shit. And then you reach the bottom and then you start coming out. It still sucks, but then it's better. And then you get out and you're like, oh, I just proved to myself that I can like eat shit for like 2 years and then like be in a way better place in my life. But that's just kind of like the need for consistency is how you get through the learning pit to the pot of gold at the end.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Something you said earlier too about delaying gratification, I think, is a huge part of it as well. Because especially now, a lot of people say all the time, which is true with, I think the millennials, which I'm part of the millennials, but I feel like
we're
at the tail
end of,
I think we're a mix
at the beginning of millennial.
Yeah, the best of both worlds, to where we still have the work ethic, but all the technology knowledge, but also like growing up without cell phones, which I feel like, kids who start having cell phones when they're, a couple years old or whatever, and then start getting like, they're just so used to like, even now, I mean, when I was younger, if you want to know the answer to something, you had to go look it up in an encyclopedia or dictionary. Now you can just literally whip out your phone and find the answer to anything in an instant. And that's just an example to where if you're working towards something, or you're doing this like daily repetition of a grind of trying to stay consistent, you're not going to be in that mood every day, and you're not going to get instant gratification every time. So you have to find out, like, recognize what your triggers are that make you feel like not doing it, and then how you can come about those. And then having a support system, I feel like, is the biggest, because with both of us, what are the odds that both of us will be feeling in a like shitty mood on the same time or same day? It's probably like super rare. So one of us will always be there to the other to pick them up when you're having like a crap day. And I think that helps with the consistency, even if like, there could be a morning where I get up and I log on. I'm just like, oh man, like I'm not really feeling it today. I'm still going to do what I got to do because that's how I am. But all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, hey, that offer did come through. That should have came through yesterday. And then I get it out, and then another one pops up and I'm like, all right, and then you start getting in that, your mood changes. And then it's like you said, I'm like just fucking on it, like all day, just crushing it. So
Yeah, the consistency it keeps you in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the game, there's good, there's bad, there's good. But like, if you just freaking say, I don't want to do this anymore, then you don't get those moments where you all of a sudden get a win and you're like, yeah, okay, this is why I do it. That's just with anything in life. So I thought that the blocking the schedule was a really good tip. So this is a trick that I use when I'm just like really, really struggling and I'm like I haven't felt this way in a long.
Nice save.
I haven't felt this way in a really long time, but when I'm like, I can't collect my thoughts. I'm like, I have so much shit to do. I just don't want to do any of it. I'll take a piece of paper, like a notebook. I can't really see it, but there it is. That's a notebook. And that wasn't helpful. But what I'll do is I'll take the notebook and I'll write like the time, like 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on every block, I'll write something I need to do. So it's like, call Tim, send email to so-and-so, get back with so-and-so, like finish this thing. And then like, as I go through, I'm crossing it off. I'm forcing myself to do it in a time constraint so the day doesn't just get away from me. And then it's like you said, like you start knocking shit out and you're like, okay, yeah, feeling good. It's like a little productive. And my biggest thing with consistency is easiest tasks first. Okay, cool. I'm not feeling it today. Where can I gain momentum?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, build that momentum.
Simple tasks, just start feeling good.
Get some easy wins. And I like
this
that.
is a really cool one. So, little story here. It's called Make the Reward Visual. So, there's this 23-year-old stockbroker, and he had to make 120 calls a day. So what he did was he took 2 jars. One jar had 120 paper clips, and one was empty. So he would just go throughout the day, call paperclip until the paper clips were gone. Just did it with that's just the day. It's just what I got to do. And the dude went from starting 18 months later, he had, it says raised $5 million. I don't know what that means, but whatever stock, he must have like gathered $5 million worth of like accounts to manage or something. But like just Dane and just so that I thought that was neat because I've never tried any visual aids like that.
No, I like that. Sabrina had a trick that she would do to stay consistent with like cold calling every day. And she would put the colored Post-its on the wall. And every day that she like completed the task or whatever would like put it up on the wall. So then at the end of the month, you would see if you had all 30, 31 days on there. And every day is like a reminder to look like, oh, I didn't get my things done today. So like a story. So there's a survey that I heard that someone had done to where they surveyed 50 business owners that, for successful, like, millionaires. And they asked them like, hey, what's the number one best tool or like strategy or thing that you use to make your business successful? And 49 of them said exactly what you were just holding up. This right here. It was that's notebook? Not a yellow legal notepad, but they were like a notepad and making a list. You write down the list, all your things that you have to do today. And before the day's done, you get them all done. And they say the reason is because if you don't, and you just come in to like deal with things as they come up and put out fires, they were like, by the end of the day, you'll be exhausted and you'll have accomplished nothing.
Nothing.
But by coming in and having that list and getting it done, that's what keeps you consistent and will make you successful. And it's the same thing on the days that I'm like, oh man, like I'm just not feeling it. I'm just like, all right, what are the main important things I need to get done today? And I'll start writing a list of down. And I'm like, at a bare minimum, I'm going to do these things today, whether I like it or not.
Do you have a limit?
Of what, like how many things it has to be?
Numbers, yeah.
It just depends on like things that need to get done. I'm like, depending on how quickly the task can get done, I just kind of gauge of where I'm like, all right, I feel like if I only do that on a day I don't feel like doing it, I still put in more work than probably most people will at the office is the gauge that I use. And that's another thing. Sure. Like the bar is set very low at most places as far as like the production you need to do to like outperform everyone else. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
That's what's so funny because you're a high performance person. I would say that I am as well. So when you and I aren't feeling it, I don't think anyone notices. Like,
No.
our level of like optimization to not feeling it is still well above the average.
I would agree. And that's the point that I was trying to make, and not saying it like, we're super badass or whatever. Like we're regular, like people just like everyone else. And I think that's one of the things that really makes this podcast great, is because anyone can relate to like what we're saying, what we're coming from. And this is a side tangent, but I really love about you, Joe, the fact this is going to be a bromance moment here for a second, but
Ooh.
You're the most honest person I've ever met. Like, you just tell 100% how you are about something, and like not worried about like, oh, how will someone take that the way I said it. And I think that's something that's special about the podcast that you do. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, or an example of like when we were talking about the charity kind of episode that we had a while back, and you were just honest. You're like, I'm not like that giving of a person, like charity wise type of thing. And I think most people would never admit that, even though a lot of people feel that way. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
yeah. So sorry, back to my point. You just have to think of it that way. Is like, even if you don't feel like it, if you just put in a little bit of work, you probably just did as much work as most everyone else is going to do. So even if it's a day where you're like, man, I didn't, just like you said, you went to the gym, you did 30 minutes. Well, that's better than nothing. And most people are doing nothing. So
there was one other person at the gym.
You're 30
and
minutes.
Like, that made me feel good. I was like, okay, it's cold, it's snowing, and I'm like one of two people. Normally there's like 8 or 10. And they were like, it's snowing. That's enough for me to not do this thing I need to do, which I get, dude, because I don't want to fucking go. But then I think it makes you feel better too, because like you're like, okay. And it's the people, most people don't have a self-directed task, like consistent ability, and it's like you create these foolproof systems. Like, okay, here's what I need to do today. Here are the time blocks. Okay, I'm really struggling. Here's my list. And then like everyone who's just letting the day run its course, and then at the end of the day, you and I still have days like this, and you're just like, what the fuck did I do today? Like, I was really busy, but I don't know what I got done. That's most everyone's day. And I think also what I really like you said is, like we're not, I think you and I are intelligent, but like we're not like in Mensa. Like there's a lot of people at the level of intelligence, or it's work ethic, and then holding yourself to a higher standard is really all it is. And then consistency, right? Time and effort, I guess you could call it.
And it depends on what you're wanting to be consistent towards doing. If it's starting a new habit, if it's like performing well at your job or in life, or I think even as a parent, it's very important to be consistent.
Yeah, that's so important, because you're literally shaping a young mind. How much thought have you put into that, like, and practice, and like can you expand on that? Because you're kind of like, as you're shaping Logan into a human. Yeah,
so like there's a lot of things. I mean, at the age he is too, like they literally absorb everything you do and say, and they're not like, they're not listening to what you're saying. They're watching what you're doing. So if you're like a do as I say, not as I do type, right? You're telling them like, hey, don't do that. Like, we don't do that. But then you go and do it. They're just like, you're doing it. Why can't I? So I look at it as like I don't swear around him, which I know that's a small example.
That's a great example.
Sometimes they'll schedule like a work happy hour when I have him, and I'll go to the happy hour, but I'm like, I'm not drinking. And they'll be like, it's cool, you can have a drink. And I'm like, I know, but my son will never see me drink in front of him. I mean, when he's old enough to drink, then like, hell yeah, we can have some beers. But there's just like behaviors that you'll see parents all the time on social media and stuff, and they'll be like on there, like day drinking, like, my kids are terrible, and like, I hate my life and all this. But then they're like, I would do it. I would die for my kids. And it's like, well, why don't you stop being drunk all day? You're supposed to be watching your kids. Like, if you're willing to do everything, those are the little things you can do to be consistent. Like, so I just try to do that. And things is like phones very easy and distracting. So when I'm with him, I put my phone somewhere else, so I'm not tempted to try to look at it, because I'm like, this is my time to be with him and focus on him and
be present.
When I work on Friday and he's with me, I try to take breaks to like play with him and interact. Or if I'm in the middle of doing something and he's like, Dad, I want to show you this thing, I'll just try to make a habit of stopping what I'm doing to go have him show me, even if it's just for a minute or two, to just keep reaffirming, like, I hear him, he's seen and heard, and it's also let him know, like, he's important to me. And whatever I'm doing at the time is usually not something I can't just like take a break from. So I think little things like that to try to be consistent. And I don't know, a lot of people are like, hey, like, he seems like one of the most happy kids I've ever seen. Like,
he's really freaking happy.
Like, what is your secret or whatever? And I'm like, I just try to be present with him when he's with me. Like, not fucking spacing out. Like, oh, I had a long day at work. Like, I just want to veg out. Like, no, I don't do that shit. I veg out when he goes to bed. So
for you, yeah, those are those things where the incongruency of they grew up so fast, but then, like you said, parents are like checked out. Which part of me is like, okay, yeah, you are. It is very. I'm sure it's very tiring, but it's like you put the effort in where it matters, and then you get the results you want. Like, if you have shitty kids, it's not because they're shitty; it's because you did a shitty job.
And I'm not saying there aren't instances where people do put in that work and the kid can turn out to however they want, right?
Sure.
That happens.
Sure.
And I'm not comparing kids to dogs, but anytime you meet someone who has a wild, crazy dog, it's not the dog's fault; it's the owner's fault. Would you agree?
That's 100%.
Yes,
yeah.
because they didn't put in the time and work and effort with the dog to basically like set patterns and behaviors that are appropriate, right? It's just anything in life, you got to put the time and the effort in to get like the results. So, and look,
It's
I'm
the
not
pay
saying
now or pay later.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent. I get exhausted all the time too, and there's days where I'm just like, fuck, man, like, this is so hard, especially like when you do it by yourself. But I just tell myself, like, this for him, like, this is hugely important, right? Like, I chose to have a kid. I got to put in the work.
Good for you.
Right.
And he is a very like kind, well-adjusted dude. Like, I've seen him a handful of times and I'm always like, oh, he's like so happy.
Oh, thanks, man.
But yeah, it definitely matters. Like, I think the learn by example, because I mean, kids don't even remember half the stuff, but they're like creating the emotional memories. Mm-hmm. So like they're remembering like how they felt. If you're, so your availability, okay, I matter. It's things like that, like just print on your brain when
like,
you're a little.
To give you an example, he's at the stage now where he likes to ask questions, a lot of questions about things. And I know some people will be like, oh, the kid just keeps asking me why, and the parents get so upset. But I look at it as the other way. I look at it as like, I will answer any question he has to the best that I can. And I'd be honest with him. And I look at it as like, I don't want to like be like, shut up, like, you're asking too many questions, because you're setting all the patterns and behaviors that they'll have as an adult. So if he becomes scared or timid or doesn't want to question things or ask questions, then as an adult, he's not going to do that. I would rather have him be like free thinking and using his mind and common sense and not be scared to ask questions about things, or if something seems off, to be like, I mean, me and you are very similar into that, like at work when we're like, call out bullshit when we see it, right? Like I want him to like be able to feel like he can do that. I don't want him to be timid just because I didn't feel like, spending 2 more minutes explaining to him for like the 5th time in a row why that squirrel is like eating that twig or something, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, what's neat about that is you're building the muscle of explaining things in a way that he can process. Mm-hmm. So you're also developing this ability to be a better teacher. And I think it's just neat that kids get so curious. Like, that's so cool. Like, cause you lose that as you get older, depending on how many people said, dude, stop being annoying, or like whatever. Like, you just get so hyper focused on what you want that, like, I'm not as curious about the world as like, I'm curious about the things that I like. But it's neat that like something like this is a long time ago, but I remember in college I did mushrooms and I was like, oh, I got to walk around barefoot because it's my new thing now. So I'm walking around barefoot, and it's me, my friend Dan, and this girl Sarah that was in like our clique, and we were walking it was a park, and there's this, it's like middle of the day. It's like, I don't know what the hell we're doing. But when you're that age, you're like, you don't have, you're like, oh, I can do anything. There's this little kid like running around the park. He's so happy, and he's like running up stuff. He was like touching a pole, and he'd like run over here and like grab like a wood chip, and he was like, oh my God, what is this? But he was like so freaking joyful, and like there were no preconceived notions like printed on him yet. And I was like tripping, and I was like, that is incredible. Like, I want to like be like that forever. But like, that's such an important part of their journey, is that unbiased discovery.
Yeah,
I don't know
and when
how
you
we got on that, but what do you think so you're building a habit of essentially it's okay to ask questions, and you're going to, like, people in the world will be happy to like answer and like give you information.
Yeah, I just want him to not, I'm trying to not set any like biases or any things that I have on my own, right? That's not fair to like imprint those things onto him. Like, he needs to figure that stuff out, and he'll make his own decisions, right? Like, obviously, when it comes to safety and things like that, like, I'm not just letting him run around wild, but, a small example would be like every day I'll give him 2 options of like what shirt he wants to wear.
Ooh.
The one is if I just let him pick any shirt he wants, we're going to be there for an hour. And the other thing is if I just say like, here, you're going to wear this, then he's not going to wear it. But if I give him 2 options, it's doing a couple different things. One, it's letting him pick, which is getting him used to the pattern of like making decisions, right? Even though it's a small decision, but he's 3. Like, what, like, big decisions can I give him? So setting those kind of patterns to where he gets used to like making decisions and picking things, and he also then, when he picks out the one he wants, he's excited and will put it right on, and it's not a fight.
He's like, yeah, I made my choice.
Yeah, like,
That's
he's
cool,
like, I
dude.
picked that shirt. I'm wearing the shirt I want. I mean, he doesn't like to wear pants, and now it's freezing. So when we go outside somewhere, it's like, he's like, I don't want to wear those pants. So I said, all right, well, we'll stay home. We're not going then. And then he's like, well, I want to go. Okay, well, you have to wear your pants to go outside. It's very cold. So when I explain it to that way to him, he's like, okay, I'll put my pants on. Instead of, I think most parents are just like, no, you're going to put these on because I'm telling you to. I'm still telling him he has to put the pants on, but he still has the decision. If he doesn't ultimately want to wear them, that's fine, but we're going to stay home. We're not going to go to the store or the park or usually go do that thing he wants to go do.
So that's so slick. The power's in his hands. So we're all running out of our time here. I wanted to get what is your number one hack for staying consistent when you're not feeling it? Number one hack.
I think the biggest thing that can help you out is just having someone else on the days that you're not feeling, whether it could be like family member, someone you like live with, spouse, someone you're dating. I mean, it could just be a friend that, someone you could text or whatever to, even if you just vent. We all know a good like venting, and I don't mean vent for like 4 or 5 hours, but a good 5-10 minutes. Just kind of get that out or chat to them. You'll be amazed at how much that changes your mood around it and picks you up. Obviously, that person's can't just be like an energy vampire or one of those that's just like complainer 24/7. It's not a good friend to have. But if you have somebody who's similar to you and also, kind of driven, things like that, they'll pick you up in a second, turn you around. What about you?
We did that for like 2 minutes today. It was like literally, I think it was like 3 exchanges, and then I like went about my day.
Yeah, which I laugh because you'll literally send me one sentence about like ranting about something, and then you'll be like, all right, rant over. I'm like, that's literally the shortest rant ever. Moment. Like, you feel better from just that one sentence. Like, you can tell me more.
It's nice though, because, I think to your point, it's because I believe that you are understanding me regardless of whether or not you agree. I just feel better. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like someone who just understands that you're not feeling it in that moment, and they're like, yeah, dude, I feel you. And you're like, okay, well, yeah, okay, all right, well, and then you just kind of get back after it.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What would be your big takeaway for people?
I like want to like, it's like when you're hungry and you like want to pick the perfect thing to eat, it's kind of how I feel about deciding this. The biggest hack, I'm trying to think of one that I haven't said. Yeah, it's just the list probably, honestly. Like, block off your hours and just write down everything you need to get done. And then I do this thing where I just like remind myself, like, all right, today's the day I just need to eat shit. Like, the eating of the shit is how you win. Like, if you look at the world and, you know, the system, the way it's created, it's definitely favors the people who are willing to like eat the shit for longer. Because every time you go up in life, it gets harder, not because it's harder, but it's because you have to level yourself up. So the minute you get good at your job, like you just got promoted, dude, and now it's like, oh shit, I got to learn how to do this job. And then the minute the minute you're good, then they're like, okay, cool, now you can do this job. And you're like, well, I don't know how to do this job. And they're like, well, we believe you can. So then you suck again. Like, your success is a series of sucking and then being awesome, and then sucking and being awesome until you're ready to just like exit the game. And so for as long as you're in the game, like video games, if they were the same difficulty the whole time, you would stop playing. So the suck part is the part that keeps you interested. Brief moment of glory, suck again. Brief moment of glory, suck again. You know, so the people that can just like embrace the suck and create systems to just keep doing what they need to do when they're not feeling it, those are the ones that are going to be the most successful.
I agree 100%. I like that. Do we have time for a joke?
Oh, hell yeah. And I got one ready too.
Okay, I'll go first.
I came prepared.
What do you call a girl with no arms or legs?
What?
Jessica. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Not Jessica.
Okay. I like that. Fuck, where did mine go? Of course, I lost it. All right, here we go. Why was the calendar afraid?
I don't know. Why?
Because its days were numbered.
I like that.
Oh, awesome, man. This is a fun one, dude. I feel like we were just riffing on this topic because we both find it so interesting the whole time. So thanks, everyone, for listening. We really appreciate y'all. Check out our YouTube. It's just Cam and Joe. We're on Anchor, Apple Pods, Google Pods.
Spotify.
Spotify, that's a big one. iHeartRadio. Your local gas station. Buy some Cam and Joe scratch-off lottery tickets, TBD. But yeah, we appreciate y'all. Give us a check out, give us a like, leave a comment. If you have a topic you're interested in, hey, you want to be a guest? We could probably make that happen, you know? You get your people to talk to our people, and we'll make it happen, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Cameron, always a pleasure, my friend.
You too.
All right, have a good day, guys. Bye.